Republicans and Democrats have so far been able to come together to pass broad relief for American workers. At least they're trying, sidelined, of course, by the coronavirus. Our next guest says, though, it'll be dangerous if we can't get some national bipartisan healing when this crisis is over. Joining us right now is Tom Friedman, New York Times foreign affairs columnist. His latest column, What America Needs Next, a Biden Unity Cabinet. He goes on to say, if this isn't the time to leave behind the hyperpartisanship that it's made it nearly impossible for us to do anything big and hard for 2 decades, then when? Tom, thanks for joining us this morning.
Great to be with you, Andrew. Thanks.
Idea about getting to the other side and what you think is going to happen to politics as a result.
Well, right now, Andrew, everyone's sheltering in place mostly. And trying to play nice as well as we can to get out of this crisis. But I believe that when the fog clears and people come out of this and survey the massive wreckage of our economy, the jobs lost, the businesses that went under, the savings that have been devoured by this, there's going to be a really wrenching debate about who got bailed out and who didn't. And that is coming. And to the extent that we could have a national unity cabinet, one that has Republicans and Democrats working together, I think it's going to be able to manage that debate a lot better. I think we have another debate coming, and you've been alluding on it in the show this morning, and that's around privacy and civil liberties. The only way we get out of this crisis ultimately is with a vaccine. But between now and we would get a vaccine, it could be 18 months, maybe at best, or hopefully sooner, but it could be a while. The only thing that fills that gap in is intrusive technology. Just as after 9/11, I wanted to know that the person sitting next to me on an airplane was not carrying a bomb. I'm going to want to know before I take another airplane ride in this country that they're not carrying COVID-19, or I'm not carrying COVID-19. Now, that's going to require a lot of intrusive technology. Just watch what's going on in China now that they've opened up Wuhan, and you see the kind of measures they're applying. I support those kind of things, but there's going to be a big civil liberties argument over that, as there was after 9/11, only I think this will be much bigger. And for that reason, again, I think we're going to need to approach that with some kind of unity of purpose in governing.
Right. How do you think politics changes when it comes to economics, to things like minimum wage? I think this has been one of these moments where we've seen the importance of people on the frontline workers, not just healthcare workers, but people working in warehouses, people getting items to the American public, people working at the checkout counter. And I just wonder how you think that changes, how you think it changes the conversation around taxes, all of it.
I think the meta discussion we have to have, Andrew, is about resilience and propulsion. That is, what are the things we now understand we need to be resilient, and what are the things we understand we need to be propulsive? We don't want to just close in on ourselves and close our economy. We also want to be able to grow the economy. And for me, it's too early to assess that. So much depends on how long the crisis lasts, obviously, how deep the economic destruction is. You've been talking this morning about what role the government should be. And when I think of wanting to come out of this crisis stronger, for instance, 2 things come to mind. FDR had the Rural Electrification Act. That was central to coming out of the Great Depression stronger. I think 2 things that come to my mind: investments that would amplify our productivity as a country would be rural broadband, bringing broadband to every home in the country. People who live in rural areas don't have the easy online education access we need. We still have a lot of people who don't have rural broadband. I think that would give a boost to productivity. And the other would be a truly national electric grid where we could manage demand and supply, and particularly of renewables. You were talking about, you had the senator on, talking about what Saudi Arabia and Russia are doing to us, and it is an attack on our fracking industry, and it's an attack that should be rebutted. I'm for natural gas as a bridge fuel, But why stop there? Let's make ourselves truly independent of Saudi Arabia and expand solar and wind production. Solar and wind are now 21% of electricity production today in America. It's an amazing number. It continues to go up, and the price continues to go down. I don't want to be dependent on these guys ever again under any circumstances.
I also wanted to ask you if you wanted to weigh in on a debate we were having earlier today. Jack Dorsey announcing that he's moving $1 billion of his stock, a third of his wealth, towards trying to work on the COVID challenge. We've also seen people like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and a number of the wealthiest in the country work on these projects. But at the same time, we've had a big question about whether philanthropy or the free market of philanthropy should be either competing with the government, or whether these donations unto themselves should be tax deductible, whether that money should be going to the government, given that when we do have a crisis, we still rely on the government ultimately. Where do you land on that?
Well, Andrew, basically, I've been saying from the beginning, we're in a race today. It's a race between Moore's law and I dropped out there. Andrew, I've been saying since the beginning that we're in a race here. It's a race between Moore's law and COVID's law. Both are exponentials. I think our great strength as a country is our ability to leverage Moore's law to find the technical solutions here, the therapeutics and the vaccines, faster than any country in the world. And to the extent that we can leverage the private sector, the public sector, the philanthropic sector to getting us to the therapeutics and vaccines to get over this crisis, I'm all for it. And I'm really not interested in that, worrying too much about the other parts of that debate. I think it's one of our strengths, and we should be leveraging it.
Okay. Tom Friedman, good to see you, my friend. Stay safe and healthy out there. Thank you.
Hey, Tom, would a Biden cabinet mean Biden has to be president? I didn't really understand that piece. Is that part of the deal, or he just?
Joe, it's a legitimate question. Let me just turn off the show. Sorry. Personally, I don't have strong feelings about that. I
was trying to read it without thinking. Okay, I see what you're saying, but then I think it means Biden would be president, and that introduced a whole new angle into the whole equation. Yep. Anyway, Tom, I just yanking your chain a little, just because I was wondering whether one follows the other, because you want him to announce it at the convention. So it doesn't mean he actually becomes president. He just puts forward this idea of this big bipartisan cabinet. But you mean he becomes president?
My priority is having a national unity government that can manage the incredible stresses and strains. And Joe, we haven't even begun to feel the pain and anger that's going to come out of it. And let's remember that the last crisis produced the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street. They will be knitting circles, Joe. They will be knitting circles compared to what's going to explode after this.